Hey, it's PMR. I want to do this video today on the state of the used equipment availability for Sony cameras and lenses. Let's get into it. You know, when I started shooting Sony back in 2014, over 10 years ago, which seems like a long time ago, there was very little available to buy new, let alone used. We waited with bated breath for each new launch of a lens or a camera. We were so hungry to get new models, especially lenses. And the initial system was actually APS-C. And then when Sony dropped the A7, we started over again with full frame. And so there were very few lenses back then that you could buy. I remember getting excited about the 28mm f2, which came out because there really wasn't a fast wide angle for a while. And they were doing the Zeiss slow zooms, the f4 zooms and stuff like that. But then they got the ball rolling and they started doing the G Master glass, which is incredible. But the point is that there have been, initially, it was so hard to find anything used. And if you went on eBay or whatever, there really wasn't much there. And if it was there, it was gone in an hour because it was such a supply and demand issue. There was no supply of used gear. In fact, early on, for the first 3 to 5 years, there wasn't enough gear to do new stuff either. We don't have that problem anymore. I mean, right now, we have 3 85mm prime lenses, which is really spectacular. We have so many 50s, I can't even think of them all at one time. But this has caused a sort of, not a glut, but it's caused for the very first time, starting about 3 or 4 years ago, we've got a nice supply of used gear in the Sony brand, which is really nice because those of us that started early on, there wasn't anything like that. And so for instance, the original A9, which debuted in March of 2017, you can buy these cameras for, around $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 for a really clean one. If you go on eBay, there's lots and lots of examples. The A9 Mark II, which has been eclipsed by the A9 Mark III, of course, but it's still a valid camera for sure. This you can still buy new, but at a greatly reduced price compared to the A9 Mark III. The Alpha 1, when it came out, was just the king of all. I kind of feel like it still is. But that being the case or not, there's lots and lots and lots of A1s out there on the used marketplace now because of the A1 Mark II's debut. And that thing is shipping now, and people are getting their cameras, which is pretty cool. In the other arena where, my specialty is long glass because I shoot a lot of sports, and I do like wildlife too. And in that arena, we only had a 400-2.8, and we didn't have that really for very long. Before we finally got a 600 f4, and then they dropped the 2 to 600. But as an example, the 400-2.8 was the very first lens. Now that lens was so hard to find used, nobody even ever heard of them. And there'd be a rumor of one for sale in Seattle, and the whole East Coast would get all excited and try to buy that lens. Nowadays, there's plenty of used 400-2.8 GMs on eBay and other places as well. And so, same thing with the 600 f4. Even the 600 is available. It's a kind of a unusual lens. I would guess, I don't know what the actual numbers are, but I would guess that Sony probably sells 40 or 50 400-2.8s for every one 600 f4. And most of those go to birders. Even the 200 to 600, which is a great lens, it's so approachable at $2,000. But if you can't stretch to do $2,000 to buy that lens, you can just go on eBay and buy one for around $1,300 to $1,500, which is a great buy for the only super zoom that is sealed for autofocus and zoom. My point is that we're at a point right now where there's tons and tons and tons of glass, and there's 5 different camera bodies you can choose from to shoot sports action, birds in flight, and performance photography of any kind. You have A9, which you can still buy used, A9 II, still current, A1, A9 III, and then A1 Mark II. That's 5 camera bodies. And so I was talking to my buddy, Paul Giroux, yesterday, and we were talking about this. I was asking him for ideas about this video. And he said, yeah, it's like Sony made 30 years worth of lenses and cameras in just 10 years. And really, that is accurate. They really did. And they're not done. They keep cranking stuff out. It's pretty cool. But anyway, so as you're thinking about, buying and expanding your Sony system, buying into it or expanding it, don't be afraid to look at some used gear, especially if it's from a reputable dealer. It's just exciting now that things have changed so radically. And just imagine, as an example, that when the Associated Press, that's 114 photographers, I think, in the United States, 114 photographers switched to Sony overnight. Think of all the Canon glass and camera bodies that got flooded in the marketplace. That's why you can buy a 504, L lens for like $2,200. It's crazy. There's just not a lot of value in the Canon stuff, but the Sony stuff is really still holding its value extremely well. If you have comments or questions about the used camera marketplace, hit me up, man. I love to buy things used when I can find what I want in a condition that's acceptable for a decent price. Sometimes it's not worth it. If it's like $100 from new and it's a $2,000 item, I'm buying new. You know what I mean? But anyway, thanks so much for watching, and let me know your thoughts on this. And if you have any questions, always feel free to put them in the comments below.